Hi, everybody. Dr. Sharon Saline here on our Attitude Friday uh, tips and tools Facebook Live. I'm very excited to be here, and I'm super excited to be here because we actually figured it out what was going wrong with the Sharon Saline Attitude Connection. So this is very exciting for me because here we are. Hey, Alyssa. Hey, Heather. How you doing? And I'm really excited to be here to talk about mothering, mothers, and parent issues. Um, this is certainly Mother's Day in the United States. I don't know if it is where you live, but whether it is or not, we can celebrate being a mom and being a mom with an ADHD, a son or daughter who lives with ADHD or living with ADHD yourself. So I'm really excited. This is a part of a series of Facebook Lives through Attitude Magazine, which I love and adore, and I'm so proud to be part of. Hi, Wendy. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Jenna. And we're going to get started in a few minutes. I got on a little early because we have been having technical issues, and I wanted to make sure that we are working today. So I'd love to hear from you a little bit about, even if it's not Mother's Day, tell me a little bit about one or two, a couple of things that you love about being a mother who lives with ADHD in your family. What is fun about that? Creativity, spontaneity, snuggling. I just would love to hear from you anything about making what makes being a mom living with ADHD in the family special for you. So put that in the chat. I want to hear from you. Let's see. We have lots of people today. Hi, Christine. Hi, Shauna. Hi, Susan. Allison. Robin. Heather. You and your son both have ADHD. Colette. Crystal from Nevada. Um, Thank you. I appreciate that. The spontaneous energy. Belinda, Mother's Day tomorrow. My 10-year-old is ADHD. Crystal, me, my husband, and two of our kids have ADHD, noticing the details other people miss. Awesome. I love that. So I want to hear a little bit about what makes living with ADHD special for you and your family. It's something that you really love because we spend a lot of time talking about some of the challenges, and let's try to usher in this Mother's Day with some appreciation. Amanda, you're from Wabash, Indiana. Helen, you're from Scotland. Hey, awesome. Um, Thank you, Stacy. I sadly will not be with any of my children on this Mother's Day, but I will be with my new puppy, who feels like a child at this point because he demands a lot. um, uh, Omani from Northern Virginia. Hello, Samantha. You can figure things out. Great. Thinking outside the box. I'm with you on that. Belinda, my son loves to clean up and keep to the rules. He's a people pleaser. That can be nice. So, anyone else want to share some of the things that you really love about living with ADHD in your family? Focus during tranquility moments, hyper focusing on your art. That sounds really good. Um, uh, Anybody else want to share something that they love about living with ADHD as we prepare to get started on a formal note as 4 o'clock um, uh, comes momentarily? So, welcome. Tell me where you're from. Tell me something you love about living with ADHD in your family. I would say my puppy is a golden retriever, and his name is Milo. And he's super cute, but I put him in his crate for our meeting because I didn't want to deal with any accidents or any kind of growling, etc., etc. Kirstine, you say my ADHD book comes home from school and asks for a cuddle. You're in Scotland. That is wonderful. I love that. Um, what I love about it in my family is that my daughter's incredibly creative, and I just have so much respect for what her artistic talent that seems to come out of every pore. Helen, you say creativity and super good timekeeping. Francis, ooh, I have three of those. Amanda, awesome pet, aka fur baby. He really is a fur baby. And if we could get to sleep till 6:30 or 7, it would be perfect. But right now I'm waking up at 6 o'clock. My boy remembers so many things others forget. I'm in New Zealand. Hi, Belinda. Michelle, creativity, problem solving. Oh, Heather, I'm actually struggling. Sorry to be a Debbie Downer. No problem, Heather. We're here for you. Big hug. Stacy, my grandson has a big heart. Joanne, I love my 13-year-old daughter's honesty. Sometimes with ADHD, it all comes out. I know she's going to give it to me straight. Allie, ADHD superpowers are awesome. Three Goldies, that is. Okay, Francis, thanks. Stellar sense of humor, impulsiveness, and my creativity makes me feel young and able to connect with my nieces and nephews. So let's get started. I prepared a few things to say about motherhood in general, and I'd love to share that. Heather, there's a good thing. You have a therapy cat. Awesome. So let's get started. So here's the thing I want to ask, and you can say, put your answer in the chat. How many of you spend time comparing yourself to other mothers and coming up short? How many of you do this? If you do this, put in the chat, yes, I do. Hi, Deborah. Creativity, Instant Solutions. You're in Rotterdam. Thank you. Hi, Anne Marie. Nice to see you. He's graduating in June. Wonderful. Shauna from Canada, The Adventures. Picked up one of my girls from college. Wonderful, Joellen. Hi from Vancouver. So how many of you, and I see a lot of people saying yes, compare yourself to other mothers on social media and come up short? I know that sometimes I compare my insides to other people's outsides, and it's such a toxic pattern. And I know where it comes from in my family. And this is something that I think we do as women, with or without ADHD. We compare ourselves to some idealized version of what being a woman is about. So it's time to stop looking at what you are not doing and valuing yourself. So we often, that's right, Crystal, we look at our weaknesses and compare them to others' strengths, which isn't fair. I completely agree. So regardless of your natural human foibles, you are still the best mom for your kids. You have birthed them, or you've adopted them, you've nurtured them, you've loved them to the best of your ability and within your personal resources. This Mother's Day, let's take stock of what you do well and appreciate the relationships and the connections you have with your children for what they are. The rest of the 363 days of the year, you can do whatever you want. But this weekend, I'd like to invite you to do something different, to appreciate what you do as a mother. Because in our culture, in this Western culture that we live in, if you are viewing from one of those countries, and I think many of you are, there came in the Victorian age, an idealized version of a mother was sort of evolved and was created. And this was a middle class woman who stayed at home with the children. She didn't work. She didn't work in the fields. She didn't really have anything that was substantial to her except for being a good mother. And the judgment, the decision about what a good mother was came from how successful her children were. And I took a lot of women's studies classes in college, and I always found this to be quite striking, that we're judged based on what our children do, and we're not judged on who we are. And this has been true for women for a long, long time. So this weekend, what I want you to do is try to nurture your authenticity in your relationships with your kids and with your own mothers too. Heather says, it's really hard as it is and challenging, and I would not change a thing. I love my son from the moon and back. That's right. We love our kids even though they are our greatest teachers. I say to my daughter regularly, you are my greatest teacher, and it has not been easy. My son is a teacher too. My husband is my teacher. And, and so that's kind of our path, right? We're here to grow and learn, give and receive. So I would like to offer you 4 steps toward nurturing your own authenticity in your relationships. Because I had this trainer for a long time. I trained in psychodrama, and her name was Dr. Dorothy Satin. And she used to say, real is better than perfect. And I love this expression because what this expression means is that when we are our authentic selves, that we're modeling for children how to be real instead of some version of perfection that none of us can achieve. So let's go through these steps that I'm suggesting. So the first step is to notice your courageous behavior over the years. Reflect on the ways that you've taken risks and did things with your kids that made you feel proud. And I'd love you to put in the chat, what are some things that you've done to parent your child that makes you feel good about yourself? Is there a specific family memory that makes you really happy? Take some time, look over some photos from the past with your kids and write down some of these good times so that when you're in a dark moment, you can pull that paper out or write that journal or a picture and say, I have this in me. So practice makes permanence. I love that, Allie. Thank you. Um, so I would like to hear from you. What are some things that you've done to parent your kids that you feel proud of? How have you advocated for them? Your patience? What are some things that you've done that you feel like, yes, you know what, actually, I've done a good job here? I can say for myself, I advocated for my daughter. I probably pushed her a little more than she would have liked, but I believed in her ability. I presented her with many art opportunities. So I want you to think about, what are you offering to your kids that has been helpful to them. So that's the first thing. And I'd love to see some people writing some stuff in the chat. I don't see anything. I just want to go back and say, Deborah says our functional value is derided, how well we do and what we have done with our kids. I agree. Vivian says compassion, thumbs up. I'm going to write this one down. This is good. Thanks, Omani. I take her everywhere she needs to be. Advocating for her is very stressful and never ending. Far out, Francis. All child lead activities. Thank you, Amanda. Allie, trying to give them the tools they need to independently advocate for themselves. Yes, and that's something that starts when kids are young and will continue up through emerging adulthood. Loving animals, nature, myths, storytelling, singing, dancing, fabulous. Helping them believe in the beautiful. Oops. I love that. Amanda, advocacy, perseverance, love, a growth mindset. Thumbs up on that. Liana, I'm not a mother with a human child, but I trained my dog all by herself. Oh gosh, I could use some of those tips. And I constantly get compliments on his behavior out on your outings or walks. Really send me some tips because the walking is a little tough with my almost 11-week-old puppy. Honesty and goodness, all 3 mine have this, and I'm their biggest fan. Oh, parent training through my own therapist changed my perspective and how I talked with my child. Lots of personal growth, which helped our relationship bloom. Oh, I love that. Maggie, I try to model good self-care for ADHD. I've also tried to model good self-care. Some days better than others. Jackie, you teach them independence. Christine, I've always advocated for my kids at school and now as an OT. Fabulous. Forgiveness, that's a big one. Teaching them how to best regulate their energy and giving them the confidence to reach for the stars. You are all rock stars. You are all rock star moms, even though you think, ugh, Sharon, you don't even know what I've done. Oh my gosh. That's not the point. You've done all of this amazing stuff. And that goes into your kids, into their bones. So here's the second tip. Be accountable. We have all made mistakes. We have all made mistakes. And I've made some doozies. Times when I've really lost my temper, yelled at my kids, particularly at my daughter. I'm sometimes humiliated when I think about these things. But the key to self-forgiveness is owning your stuff. Give a genuine apology about an incident that you regret that's happened recently as your Mother's Day gift to your children and yourself. No excuses or explanations, but rather, hey, you know what? I did this and I know this hurt you and I am truly sorry for that. I'm working on changing this behavior to do things differently in the future, and then work on it. One of the things that I think has healed some issues with my daughter, particularly, and my son, is that I've actually worked on some things. And the thing that mostly I've worked on is my reactivity. You know, going through menopause, perimenopause, and raising adolescents was really hard for me, and I lost it a lot. I come from a long line of super passionate, intense women. So, and I own my stuff. When I've done something that hurts them, I don't make an excuse. I say, I'm sorry, I did that, and I hurt you. And it just, it takes the air, it takes the, it takes the pressure out of the situation. So let's see, lots of comments here. Um, uh, Forgiveness, teach them. Okay. As a mother who wasn't diagnosed until my 30s, I'm able to provide compensatory strategies that I was never given. Fantastic. You're welcome, Deborah. Nicole, you have a 14-year-old daughter with ADD. I'm constantly encouraging her and motivating her to show it can be done. Willpower. Fantastic. Omani, I think I try to be honest with them. I have ADHD as well. I'm not always perfect, and that's okay. I try to let them know we can all make mistakes. It matters most that we get up, we get back up, and keep going. That is right. High five to you. I love that. And Marie, I always apologize when I realize I've handled it wrong. Amen. Thank you. Deborah, yes, a big biggie. I ask for forgiveness. Don't pretend it didn't happen. That's right. I always apologize if I shout or overreact at my son. When we do this for our kids, we are modeling accountability. That is a fantastic lesson that we can teach them. We're all fallible, we're all human, right? Amanda says the guilt is tremendous, so patient most times, but it gets harder not to react all day long. Yes, okay, and so here's the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is you're still a good person, but you wish you hadn't done that thing. Shame is I'm a bad person and I wish I hadn't done that thing. And so having guilt is okay because you still think you're a good person, but you have regret. It's the shame that's toxic. And of course, this is, Brene Brown has done so much research and helped us really understand these issues. Cassandra, I've apologized to my children more times than I want to admit. They've also apologized to me when they get out of control as a result. Great. Deborah, and the cuddle and cuddle some more and tickle, have a nice drink together, laugh out loud, finish with a dance. That right. No, I'm sorry, but the but ruins the apology. That is so true. And Dr. Harriet Lerner recently wrote a book about how to give a good apology. And Brene Brown had her on her podcast, and I highly recommend listening to that. I found it very interesting. So what's the third tip? Show up for yourself as much as for others. Many women think that being a good person is about sacrifice, prioritizing what others need more than what makes sense for them. We give, we give, we give more, and then we feel bad that we're not giving more, or we feel bad that we're a little resentful. So you put yourself last at home or maybe at work, and you criticize your efforts as not good enough. Like, this is just such a cycle of negativity that doesn't help you feel good about yourself, and it doesn't show your kids what it's like to feel good about yourself when you're an adult. So sometimes we moms, we try to control situations or people in an effort to fit reality to a perfect picture in our minds of how life should be, instead of listening to our inner critic or trying to meet impossible standards. What would it be like to show up for yourself without judgment? I was talking about this recently with my cousin. We have the inner judge. We want to develop the inner witness that says, okay, I did that, and now what? Right? So I'd love to hear from you. What ways can you show up for yourself? And what ways do you criticize yourself? What does your inner critic say to you? And luckily, this is Facebook, we're all sharing what we say. And my inner critic says to me, you know what? you could do this better. It's always a better something I could do. And that is just, it's so debilitating because it makes me like a workaholic, or it makes me feel like I'm never good enough. And I know where that comes from in my family history. What does your inner critic say to you, that internal judge? And now what I've been working on, since I've really been working on meditation and mindfulness, is noticing when it comes up and saying, "Oh, there you go again. I Thanks for giving me that warning. Good to know. I'm going to pivot and do something different." So what we want to do is put ourselves in the picture and accept ourselves, warts and all. That way, we start to fill up our own bucket of nutrients. And we need this bucket to have nutrients in order to show up for others, in order to be the kind of parent that we know we're capable of being. So I'd love to hear from you a little bit about, what does your inner critic say to you, and what can you say to it instead of? And if you don't know what to say to it instead of, I'll help you with that. But I'd like to know what it's saying to you. Jackie says, I talk to my kids about how this stuff comes from my mom to me, to them, and we can all learn to do better. I've done that too. My parents have laid some of their trips on me, which were less than their parents laid on them, and I hope that they're less than I lay on my kids. But this is what we do. We do the best we can with the resources we have available. Shauna says, sit down together over tea and talk about our feelings. Cassandra, all my girls have ADHD, and I always work to attribute what is ADHD for me and what is ADHD for them so they can become more aware of the behaviors to help them understand their brain and avoid the shame and guilt I grew up with. Oh, that's wonderful. Owning it and working to be better is easier than feeling bad about it. Bravo. Hear, hear. Kirstine says the shame is hard. You bet. The shame is hard. It's toxic. Um, Jessica, we seem to all try very hard, very good techniques to keep our babies going, but it hurts so much when kids can't see that they are still awesome even when they think they aren't doing well. It really hurts when your kids are struggling. It really hurts when your kids are, anxious or depressed, or they feel bad about who they are. And as parents, we want to make it better. And we have to really walk a really fine line, because really what our kids need in that moment is that witnessing. I see that you're hurting. I'm here for you. Um, let's talk about what you might want to say to yourself instead of that. Let's brainstorm some options for that tricky situation. That really helps them gain those tools for connected independence as they mature. And it lets them know that they're not alone. Deborah says, shame makes you hide in dark corners and can lead to depression. Oh, yes, it can. Eliana, having to apologize to the dog who may or may not understand why I don't have time to take him for a walk or play as much as I'd like. I can't explain to him why I have to work late and why I can't give him the attention, patience, and positive reinforcement he wants and needs. You know what you can do, though? You can love him up when you're with him, and that will go a long way. Safie, I do apologize if I overreact, and I also give her examples of why and what she has done that wasn't nice, and she apologizes. Interesting. That's great. Yes, put your own oxygen mask on. Ashley, I make it a point to apologize when I make a mistake and talk to them about why I react that way. I try to teach them accountability and that we all make mistakes and that we all are trying, we are not trying always our best self, but that doesn't make us a bad person. That's absolutely right. Yes, dogs do know about unconditional love. Um, Deborah says, you know what? I correct my inner critic on how she formulates her critic to me. Deborah, share what you say to your inner critic. I think we could all benefit from that. Angela, yours says, I should be a better mom. Okay, so here's what I want you to say. I want to take the shoulds and the musts and throw them away because you're shoulding all over yourself. You are the best mom you can be given the resources you have in various times. Who is the model that you're comparing yourself to? Because you may be comparing yourself to moms who have neurotypical kids. You may be comparing yourself to moms who are neurotypical themselves. You may also have an image in your mind of how people seem to be that's very different than how they are in their house. So I really encourage you to take your shoulds and your musts and put them away. Um, Allie, name your feelings and affirm they belong to you. Michelle, we all make mistakes. If we don't make mistakes, we never learn more. I try and teach my son that it's okay to make mistakes. It's what we learn from it that's important. Yes, and I think that actually the should uh, that that Angela was saying is part of that. Because what happens between there's a fixed mindset and growth mindset that Carol Dweck, has done so much research on. And in a fixed mindset, we believe that who we are is fixed, that we don't grow and change from our experiences. And in a growth mindset, we believe that we grow and change from our experiences, but we also realize that we take a risk. We see what happens. If it works, great, we've learned something. If it doesn't work, great, we regroup and we learn something. And this is why this idea of best, better really is unfortunate, and it hurts us all. And I do it, and Angela, I'm sure every person who's watching does it. So thank you. Thank you, Michelle. Crystal, allowing mistakes, and also know that nothing is stuck and hopeless, but we can keep learning more and trying again. Let us focus on hope and growth instead of beating ourselves up for not being perfect. Hear, hear. That is the motto for this weekend. Focus on hope and growth and not on beating ourselves up. Eliana, the internal judge says, I'm not good enough ever. As a dog mom owner, as a partner, as a worker, employee, even as a daughter to my own mother. So, Aliana, I just want to give you a hug because that breaks my heart. And you are good enough. And I think one thing that helps when people feel like they're not good enough is to keep a journal every night and write down 3 things that went well that day. And they can be really small. I think the other day I wrote down something like, I really liked, I liked the stir fry I made. That was it. I mean, it was one of my 3 things. One day it was, I really liked how my hair turned out. It doesn't have to be a big thing. And then another day was, I love the webinar that I gave. So I keep this list of 3 things in my journal, and it just helps remind me to shift my attention to what's going well. So I'd encourage you to try doing that. Jesse, my inner critic forces me to follow through a process completely after a project, including putting things away when I don't want to. I get lazy and force myself to follow through. So, one thing that I would encourage you to do, Jesse, is forget about laziness. We have energy for certain things. And, can you actually say, well, I'm not going to follow through on this today, but I am going to do that tomorrow? That might give you a chance to exhale a little bit if you actually can follow through on it. I think one of the things that happens is that you don't trust yourself that you'll get back to it, so you need to do it right then. And so you can maybe play with that a bit. Shauna, my inner critic says that I should be doing more. So damaging to the self. Yeah, and so many of women, it's funny. I grew up in the age of the second wave of feminism, and my mom went back to work when I was in 6th grade. She worked part-time as a journalist, and then she went back full-time. And there were so many messages about having it all. I mean, the Angelique perfume commercial, you can go to work, you can come home, make the bacon, fry it up in the pan, and still be sexy for your partner. I mean, it's like ridiculous. And that I think is part of this problem, is that many of us grew up believing we can do it all, and we can't. I know I can't, and I struggle with this. So thank you for saying that. Routine setting, sing to them. I don't think I understand that. Yes, different for everyone. To not expect so much and to allow ourselves grace. I love that, grace. Some days I just don't have the energy to do as much, and I need not to beat myself up and just give acceptance to myself as well. Yes, you do. You do need to do that. And some days I need to stay in my pajamas, and we're all going to get in bed and read together for an hour or 2 or 3, and then have breakfast for lunch. Deborah, too little, too late. Then I give back as long as I wake up and breathe. It's never too late for me. That's great. It's not lazy, it's how our ADHD brain works. Thank you. Thank you, Safiye. Um, Aliana, I'm not balanced enough. I struggle with time management, and something always ends up falling apart. Usually it's me. So that, when I hear that, I feel like it's that enough again. Like I should be this. Maybe you're just a passionate person. You go up and down. And time management is challenging. Time management is challenging for me. I grew up with a mother who had terrible time management. I never learned time management skills. So it's something that I had to really learn as an adult. And thank God my husband has helped me. And became a psychologist. So I had to learn how to, keep a 50-minute hour. But we all have our executive functioning strengths and challenges. And sometimes we forget that what's easy for us, we don't appreciate it. It's hard to appreciate what's easy for us. Instead, we focus on what isn't going so well. You aren't the only one. I think many of us do. We can only do so much. And when we have more bandwidth, we can try and add more to the table. Yes, Omani. And that has to do with that filling up your own bucket. Make sure you can take a walk or take a bath or have coffee with a friend. Figure out what fills your bucket up. I know that for a lot of therapists, we spend a lot of time talking to people, and sometimes we just need quiet time. I just need to take my dog for the walk in the morning. I don't listen to a podcast. I listen to the birds. I look at the beautiful blooming trees. That fills me up and gets me in a nice place for my day. Aliana, that has been one of the hardest things I've tried to explain myself to let it sink in. Crystal, aw, thank you so much. My frustration is too quick to ignite and it hurts me and my kids. I think if you're struggling with reactivity, I would imagine your kids may be struggling with that. And maybe you could come up with a family plan. In my book, What Your ADHD Child Wishes You Knew, or in my card deck, the ADHD Solution deck, I have a lot of tools for you to work on self-control. And you can do it as a family. Everybody can work on it together. And then there's something really nice about being comrades in the same challenge. Ashley says, my internal judgment on myself has drastically improved over the last year of CBT therapy. Far out. I still make mistakes or have some critical moments, but I'm able to bounce back a lot quicker. I'm so happy to hear this. My two youngest kids have ADHD, and my youngest daughter is struggling right now with social skills at school and being bullied. Oh, I'm sorry. So I'm really having to work with her about not internalizing what these other kids pick on her about. She's 6 years old, and because she has good grades, the school has stated she does not have ADHD, and she's slipping through the cracks because she is struggling socially, not academically. Ashley, I'm really sorry to hear this, and I really want to remind you that twice exceptional kids are real. You can be very bright and have ADHD, and social struggles for a lot of kids with ADHD are a very real thing. Many kids with ADHD have social anxiety, and part of that has to do with how they process information or what their working memory is. And so if your school is not doing this, then I encourage you to try to find an independent provider who can do some testing that you can then bring to the school. I also encourage you to seek out an educational advocate, to help you get your child's needs met at the school. Sari Solden has a fantastic workbook. Yes, Cassandra, I love that book for women with ADHD. That has helped me tremendously in overcoming the shame that comes with having ADHD. It has helped me to change my thoughts and accept my difference. I love that book. I wish you would put the name of it in the chat because it's escaping me right now, and I'm a little embarrassed about that. Maggie's using it too. Fantastic. Michelle, when they struggle the most is when you feel like you fail the most. I get so lost in the negativity. Absolutely. The darkest times I've ever felt are the times when my kids are doing badly, or they tell me that they're doing badly because I was X, Y, or Z. And then I just sink into the snake, I call it the snake pit, and I'm just lost. It's like, oh, I wasn't a good mom. I messed up. I did this. I did that. And I can't hold on to what I've done well. And that's why I think it's really important to have some really good friends who can help you. My friends would say, that is ridiculous. They would say, Sharon, listen, you did so much. Let me remind you X, Y, Z. And, this is your daughter pushing back. Yes, you made a mistake. That's okay. But you don't need to beat yourself up for it. And I think that's some of what we all do. Jesse, what if you have the internal arguments with the should and the musts and what the rest of the world expects from you and what you can do? So here's the thing, Jesse. We want to set expectations, we want to have goals, we want to have ambitions. But I think sometimes we put the ambitions like way up here and we cannot even get there. So I would consider like making a stepwise plan. I'd like to do this and then maybe that and then maybe that. But I don't need to do it all at once. And I think that the shoulds really hurt us. Loretta LaRoche is hilarious, and if you don't know her work, I encourage you to check it out. And she has this whole thing about how we masturbate and then we should on ourselves. And it's a little bit crass, but I think it's really hilarious because we're like, well, I must do this and I must do that and I must do that and then I should do this and I should do that, and then we're all like wrapped up in this tight ball of tension instead of like, okay, I'd like to do this. So if we could reframe the shoulds into I'd like to, or it would be nice if, I think that would try to relieve some of the pressure. Thank you, Annie, for sharing that article by Sari. Yes, she did do some stuff in the UK recently. Thank you. You're always good enough. Deborah. Now, that is the thing I'm trying to prune, my inner critic's thoughts. No competition with anyone else anymore. By pruning my neural network through consciously training positive thoughts and breathing some more relaxed focus. That's really great. You're welcome, Vivian. Okay, Jessica. Following through a moment later the next day. Good. That's okay if you do it. And I think most of us can. Like, I have a list, it's this long. I'm like, okay, this is for today, this is for tomorrow. And some days I can't do the thing that's on my list. I'm like, oh, well, I actually need a break. Claire, yes, it will be shared later. Safia, praising the positives and working on things we struggle with to manage them. No one is perfect. Most people make mistakes. And it's so hard to hold on to this because in this culture that we live in now, it's like you make a mistake and it's all over in social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Snapchat. Everyone sees your mistakes, and so we feel more ashamed or more self-conscious. And I think that and the flip side of that is that people are always posting these pictures of how great this is or how beautiful they look here or whatever. And so no one posts a picture of their face in the middle of a menstrual breakout, or when something when they're crying because their kid was bullied at school. We don't post those things. And so we really need the community of support that we have right here, to be able to hold ourselves and remember that we are all doing a good job, probably a better job than your parents did with you, with our own kids. We took what we got from them, we've tweaked it, and we're doing something different. Veronica, I didn't have a mother, and now I find myself trying to do and give everything to my kids. So that's an interesting issue, Veronica. And I think that one thing is you may go overboard, because of what you missed. And so it's important for us to own what our issues are and what are our kids' issues. And I call this our invisible backpack. We carry it around, the things that our parents said to us or the ways that we struggled, and we sometimes we open that backpack and we use that, we sort of dump that stuff onto our relationships with our kids. We all do that. The question is, how much awareness can we bring to it? What's our accountability? So I want to go to the fourth tip, which is to nurture connections instead of solving problems. Most kids, most adults don't want someone else to solve their problems. They want to feel heard, to feel cared about, and to be supported in coming to their own conclusions. When we mothers pressure ourselves to fix things, to make things happen and resolve other people's conflicts for them, we often overstep and inadvertently make things worse. And this is where we get into trouble, because we have this impulse and we act on the impulse, and then we're like, whoops, I maybe shouldn't have done that. So meet your kids where they are, not where you think they should be based on pure comparisons. Listen to what they're telling you with their words, their emotions, and their bodies. Ask if they want your advice before you give it, particularly for tweens, teens, and emerging adults. More than good grades or being able to clean their rooms on their own, your kids want to feel connected with you and see that they matter. Turn on the music, dance around, and clean up the bedroom. Have a contest. Who can pick up the most things from the floor? This is what they'll fondly remember, and they'll then repeat with their kids. So I'd love to hear from you. What are some things? I'm going to go back to the chat, but I'd like to hear, what ways do you jump in when you wish you didn't, and how you're trying to deal with that. Let's see, Jessica. Francis, so fed up with all the struggle to do it all. Lindsay, I'm an elementary teacher and I can apply all my tools, strategies at school, have a reputation for the most patience and talent with kiddos at ADHD at school. Why, how is it so hard to transfer the same skills to patient at home? Tips to remember and keep me in teacher mode to give my son my best too. Well, one of the challenges for you, Lindsay, is that when you come home, you're tapped out. Do you need to come home and have a half hour where you're not engaged with your kid and your partner is engaged with your kid if you have one? I think it sounds like you need a little bit more transition time, because you've given everything at the office, so to speak, and then you're depleted. So that's the first thing I would say. And it is always harder with your own kids. You see yourself in them, you have your frustrations with them. It's tougher. Dana, I don't know about anyone else, but when I got on my ADHD meds, it helped me be more liking of yourself. That's great. Michelle, my son had an awful week and I felt lost and trapped, not knowing what to do for the best. Doesn't help that no matter what I seem is wrong. So I'm sorry that you had a hard week, Michelle. And you know what? Maybe the best thing you can do is just love him. Like, that may be the very best thing that we can do for all our kids. In fact, I think it is. Love, accept them for who they are, and let them know that they matter to you. This is what kids need, and this kind of attachment, this fosters a positive attachment, and it also demonstrates an attunement. You're welcome, Michelle. Your being there helps. I needed this today, says Jackie. I was scolding myself about not getting done what I should, but today I talked with my teenage son for 2 hours. It was wonderful. All right, Jackie, double high five to you, because talking with your teenage son is better than doing anything else. That is what matters. And sometimes we forget it. We forget to do that because we're rushing around trying to do everything else. And that's also the tricky thing about teenagers or tweens, or sometimes even younger kids. When they want to talk to you, you're probably in the middle of cooking dinner or whatever. And we have to remember to try to put down what we're doing if we can and be with them. Because particularly as kids age into adolescence or emerging adulthood, those windows of conversation happen less and less frequently, excuse me. So we want to really be able to be there. Deborah says, time managing is a challenge, kind of like that fairy tale of the Grimm's brother, Frau Ola, trying to get the bread out of the oven in time, picking the apples from the trees, and shaking up the eiderdown bed cover. LOL. True enough. I love that. The damage is so deep, I don't think I'll ever get there with that. Keep trying. Keep trying. I'm sorry to hear this. Try 2E or 504 plan. That's right. Something to do instead, either nothing because that feels good and I can recoup, or doing something that I used to love that I may have forgotten how much I loved, like reading a book or writing or something mindless like knitting or watching a TV show that doesn't take a lot of focus. Absolutely, where whatever goes in and gives a couple drops into that bucket is what matters. Crystal, my daughter is Tui. So true. You have to get an outside advocate. You really do, because Tui is super tricky. Um, Lack of ability to have time management myself damn near got me fired from work. If it wasn't for management and how they acknowledge ADA rules, I'd be gone a long time ago. Thanks for saying that, Jesse. And you know, there are a couple of really great online things that help us manage our time. And I'm going to just open this document that I have that has these apps, and I'll put them in the chat. My computer is acting a little weird. Oh, wait, here it is. So I'm going to just put this in the chat for you guys. And I think, where is the chat? Can I put things in the chat? Okay, here we go. All right, so let me send this out to you. So these are different kinds of things that can help manage time. Okay. She's a sparkle. My daughter is funny, and I love being around her. That's wonderful. Okay. Eliana, there's something I worry about all the time, telling my employer my poor performance due to ADHD or letting them think I'm just a poor worker. It's hard to decide if I should risk revealing to an employer as a little bit of safety net because my performance is, I think you absolutely talk to them about it because you are covered by ADA. And I think that helps them judge you a little bit less and maybe even give them some attitude articles about adults with ADHD. Get the help. Deborah, Sharon, I have a question for you. Do you think there is a difference between a female ADHD therapist formulating goals together with their clients in comparison with a male therapist, especially when the therapist, her or himself, is someone with ADHD? That's a really good question. I don't think I know the answer to that because I think it really depends on the person. I don't think it's a gender specific thing unless the male therapist takes sort of a one-up position or the female therapist does. I think it's more about that, how the therapist makes you feel. If you feel stupid or ashamed of, if their suggestions make you feel bad about yourself, or if you're actually feeling like you have an ally and they're working with you together. Sometimes therapists with ADHD can be super helpful because they live that, and sometimes therapists who have lived with people with ADHD can be super helpful, and sometimes therapists who are just interested in ADHD can help. Allie, I used to try to speak for my kids rather than give them the wait time they needed to respond with others who were speaking with them. I think that is really fantastic to let them look, to take a pause and let them try to formulate it for themselves. This is how we teach them how to advocate. Crystal, sometimes I respond to the slam door or yell before I communicate the love for them and show them what I want to know that is going on in their heart. I need to learn to respond to the heart first and then later address the action that was frustrating. You know, I think it's reasonable to say to our kids, I'm really frustrated right now. I'm having a hard time listening and being present the way I want. I'm going to take a time apart for a few minutes and pull myself together and then do what you need to do. Step outside, drink a glass of water, go to the bathroom, wash your hands and your face, go upstairs to your room and set the timer for 3 minutes and play a song that you really love or stretch. You know, we have to actually make sure that we manage ourselves first. And sometimes we're going to lose it. I have lost it many times. I'm not proud of it. And I've owned it. And I've had to really work on trying to change it. But we will lose it. We will lose it because we're human. That's what humans do. Okay, we've lost it. You say you're sorry. You try to do differently. Maybe you explain why if you feel like that's valuable. Teacher mom guilt is strong. I'm sure it is. Yes. Deborah, yes, yes. My kids still tell me the fondest memories they have about me is when they saw me dancing African and salsa in the dance studio while losing my hairband and my hair was flying around with their memory. In their memory, I was the one with the music, one of the most colorful moms they were proud of. I love this story. Let's see, Jesse. It's a tricky path to follow because if your workplace abides by ADA, it can either be your saving grace or protection, or they can use it to crucify you. Depends on how they respond. Got to feel it out. I agree. Thank you, Jesse. Stacy, as a grandmother, I've lost my temper. I calm down and then apologize. He smiles and then starts talking. I know he's forgiven me. Meaning they're yelling. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Oh, you're welcome. Um, thank you. Screenshot that to remind me to write that down and later, and I'll look it up. Okay, move on. LOL, I've lost my new favorite flashlight in my truck about 3 times within the past week. It happens. We lose things. So this weekend, which is Mother's Day in the United States, I don't know if it is in other places, but I'm going to just ask this weekend that all of you take your musts and your shoulds and your not good enoughs and your guilt and just put them in a box. You can write a couple things down and know that they're there on Monday. You can pick them up. But let's try to spend a little time this weekend noticing what you're getting, noticing what you're getting, what you're doing well. It doesn't have to be perfect. And in the words of my best psychodrama trainer, Dr. Dorothy Satin, who is no longer with us, sadly, remember that real is better than perfect because that's what life is about. So happy Mother's Day to all of you. And I want to just respond to Deborah because you said, I do have an ADHD friend therapist abroad with whom I occasionally speak over the phone who is, and he got me really upset with his strict instructions and I need to get back to him. How should I go about that? I would just say, thanks for your feedback. That's not the direction I want to go. And I'm going to try to figure this out on my own using blah, 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 or just in a different way. Will I recap the 4 steps? Yes. Notice your courageous behavior over the years and right now. Be accountable. Show up for yourself as much as others. And nurture connections instead of solving problems. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the connections with your family. I hope you are celebrated on Sunday appropriately. It's a great honor to be here with you today. Thank you so much for joining me and to Attitude for giving me this opportunity to be with all of you. I'll see you next Friday at 4. Take care. Bye-bye.